What is up, YouTube? Welcome back. Aeneas here. I got another Monday meta update for you today. Today, I want to go through some of the things that have been going on in Standard and also Standard Best of 3 and a little bit of Historic over the weekend. So, the meta has actually been adjusting and shifting a little bit, so not stagnant yet at all. Early on, we kind of thought, oh, maybe Mono Black is the big bad. Maybe it's gonna just get stale there. Everyone's gonna be playing Mono Black. But no, people are still adapting to the meta and shifting up and making decks that attack the top decks and doing very, very well. So yeah, let's get into it. Take a look at what people have been trying and what's been working. So just looking at untapped.gg, we see that actually the top deck right now for best of one is Selesnya Enchantments, 56% win rate. Yeah, it's just been moving up. It's getting more solid. Croaky's recently just did a video on this, making his own version. So I'm sure that helped push this up, and it seems to do very well against Mono Black and the other things in the meta. Wow, so that's pretty sweet. Rakdos is also on top, so even Mono Black is not as strong as Rakdos, it looks like. But of course, we also have a few aggro decks that are doing quite well. Gruul, aggro, Mono Red aggro, stuff like that, Esper. So you have a few choices still that if you want to play that seem to be doing very well against Mono Black. So let's also take a look at the tier list from untapped.gg. We can see that they still have Mono Black at number 1 in the tier list because just because there's so many games with it, 54,000, and it's been very consistent around 55% win rate. But Mono White is no slouch either. CGB just recently made a new video with his Mono White aggro list, and I'm guessing that's why it got pushed up to tier 1, and it's been doing very well in that regards. So, and then Selesnya Enchantments we just talked about was also very good, and Rakdos midrange also very good. So, quite a few options you can do if you're an aggro player. You can go Mono White or you can go Mono Red, which is also very good. You can go for these kind of interesting enchantment lists here with Selesnya, or if you prefer mid-range, then there's Rakdos and Grixis, which are both very good mid-range decks right now as well. So still quite a bit of variety. Black is not the only deck in the meta. It's people have made decks that are beating it pretty consistently, and so you can kind of prey upon the fact that Black is very popular in best of one to kind of take it down with one of these meta decks. So yeah, pretty interesting to see that things are still adapting and changing and updating, even this far into the meta. And then I wanted to take a look at the best of 3 as well, and surprisingly, Orzhov is the top spot. So it's even better than Mono Black is doing, and I guess it has the wedding announcement and Wandering Emperor and things like that. So they just help push it a little bit over the top of the Mono Black decks. In best of 3. We also see that Esper midrange. This is kind of an interesting new deck that's using Denic and using Rafine, using Kaito, some of the other cards that were strong in the previous meta that haven't really seen a lot of play recently. And so it doesn't use very many of the same cards that are in the Mono Black deck, but it's doing quite well against the meta and against Mono Black. So that might be your go-to if you're a mid-range person and you want to try something different. Esper is quite strong right now. All right, Grixis and Rakdos, also very good. Kind of just a better version of Black for the most part. And then underneath that, John, Mardu, and stuff like that. So those are kind of your best bets for best of 3. One of those Black plus something decks, it seems like, is the way to go. All right, and looking at some of the recent tournaments, we have actually no Mono Black in the top of the recent tournaments for Standard. So Rakdos got number 1. Mono Blue actually got number 2 in this tournament, doing pretty well with their Terrors and their Ledger Shredders, and even Delver, which I think is kind of surprising, but they somehow managed to get second place spot. Undefeated, to be honest, so that's even more impressive. There's also an interesting Azorius control list with Tezzeret and Karn. I'm not sure about that, but it seems kind of interesting. I might have to check it out, see what's going on there. As a control player, That kind of stuff interests me, but I can't imagine how well that must work. I mean, Tezzeret was always really cool, but I'll have to see how Karn and Tezzeret work together, if it's reliable enough. But yeah, interesting. And then Esper mentioned Esper's very interesting new deck with Kaito and Denik and stuff like that. And then Bant Reanimator. This is similar to the green white or white Reanimator decks that we were seeing, but this one has Shauna in there for some extra card draw. So pretty cool inventions people are making, brews people are doing. They're doing quite well with them in the tournaments. So very interesting to see that people are still trying new things and it seems to be working. So don't give up hope. The meta's not solved yet. There's still a lot going on in standard. All right, and then in this tournament, the number one finish was Selesnya Enchantments, which is very surprising. This is, I think, the first time Enchantments has gotten to the top of a tournament, and this is a pretty big tournament. They went 6-0, no small feat there. And this one has Sarah Paragon and the Fall of Lord Kanda, which I'm pretty surprised about. I didn't know how much this would really hit in the meta because it has to be 4 or more CMC, but yeah, I mean, they made it work. Catilda's a strong card. You know, all of these are pretty strong. Rite of Harmony to draw extra cards, that's very interesting. I'm surprised, but somehow they made it work. So very, very cool to see this. Maybe this is going to be the new top deck. I mean, seems like it's performing very well against Mono Black, so we might have another contender for the throne here. Very, very cool. And still no Mono Black in the top of this tournament either. We got Gruul. We have Mono White. So these aggro decks are actually beating out the black decks to take these top spots. So aggro is not dead. I think as people are trying to build their bigger black, you know, with Grixis and Esper and Rakdos, they're starting to lose to these aggro decks. So meta is definitely shifting, kind of like a rock, paper, scissors thing. You know, these Grixis and Esper beat Mono Black, but then these aggros beat these Grixis and Esper, and so very interesting to see how it's all kind of playing out there. All right, and if we take a look at Twitter, we have Robert Taylor here with the Standard Challenge Top 8 from MTGO, and first place, this is the best of 3 tournament, first place was Esper, the Esper mid-range, the one I mentioned with Denik, Kaito, and stuff like that. Still very strong deck, very hard to deal with and aggressive. Second place was this Jund list with the Workshop War Chief, surprising. Unleash the Inferno for extra removal and kind of 2-for-1 value a lot of times. And that's kind of all the green they have, so that's a pretty interesting splash for those 2 cards. And third place was Grixis, so kind of that Grixis mid-range deck with Corpse Appraiser and Shieldred, and this one has Invoke Despair. Some of them are playing the Solkanar, the one I was playing on my decks was Solkanar. Fourth place is the Jund Reanimator list, and yeah, so those are the main ones for the top of that. And yeah, we still see Mono Black in the top 4, so Mono Black is still getting knocked down a peg. They didn't win in any of these tournaments, and they didn't win in the Standard Challenge top 8. We also see that in the meta from Untapped, they're not the top percentage anymore for the win rate. So seems like Mono Black no longer the top dog anymore. Pretty consistently in the past 2 weeks now, they haven't really been the top deck to play. So times are changing. People are adapting. The meta is shifting. So try some of these new decks, enchantments, Esper, stuff like that. Maybe that crazy U white list looks really cool to me. I might have to check it out. But yeah, there's way more to try out standard, so it's not settled yet. All right, and then I wanted to take a little bit of a look at historic since I've been playing a little bit more recently, and looks like Fork Color Company won this tournament. Surprisingly, this is just like good stuff plus Coco. Most of these cards like exile the opponent's creatures whenever they get played. Skyclave Apparition, Deputy of Detention. I think there was a Lagrella, like bunch of random value cards plus Coco took the top of this tournament. We also see goblins taking the top, Aura, taking the top third spot. So very interesting decks. It seems like Historic is still kind of the Wild Wild West, where you can play a lot of different things and do well. It just depends on your different opponents' matchups. So interesting list people are playing and doing well with, for sure. Then if we look at Untapped GG, we see that the top 2 decks are the Enchantress deck and Is It Wizards, with Elves coming up pretty close behind. And the most popular by far is the Wizards deck. So if you're building a brew, something you want to play on Historic, you need to make sure you can beat Wizards. And in fact, my next video coming out is about my Grixis list. I've tuned it up with the new Dominaria United cards, and it is doing very well against these decks. Destroys Wizards, destroys Enchantress, destroys Elves. So check that out. That will be coming out on Tuesday. And yeah, that is a sweet list for just destroying the meta, and it definitely be one that will get you to Mythic. So check that out, it's coming soon. But that's it for the Monday meta update. If you were going to play a tournament for Standard, I think Esper is a pretty solid choice. It seems like that it's been doing well in the tournaments and on the ladder. And in best of 3, it's doing well. Orzhov is also very strong. That's another one you could try. Doing very well on the ladder. And if you prefer tempo, I mean, there's some mono blue that's doing well. So that's still an option. If you want aggro, then you've got mono white or Gruul as your aggro of choice. Doing both very well. And if you just want to do something different, enchantments. Enchantments won this tournament. Enchantments is destroying in the best of 1 ladder at least. So definitely a solid pick there. So lots of different varieties still to choose from, lots to go to, but yeah, it's been shifting, and it's interesting to see that it's still changing. So very cool meta we got going on. All right, I think that's it for today. Hope you can go out there, have some fun, try out some of these other decks, and until next time, see ya.